Troubleshooting. RtWebParts is an add-in to Microsoft Office SharePoint Server or Windows SharePoint Services, also known as SharePoint. So the first step in troubleshooting is to make sure that those components are working properly. And if they're not, the second step would be to identify which part of it is failing. And we do have some log files that are available to help you test those components. So if you look at the bottom of your notes here, in this section we describe step by step how to open up a WebPart page and do some of the simple things that you would do to test to make sure SharePoint's working. Now we've seen some of this before, but let me just go over this. First of all, I'll bring up a server that's running SharePoint. And here's just a simple WebPart page. There are instructions on how to create this WebPart page if you're not familiar. These are things that you did earlier if you did the exercises. So you would go in here and just check SharePoint's working by, well, seeing if you have the ability to create new pages or edit existing pages. And from editing a page, can you add a new WebPart? If you choose Add a WebPart, does the RtWebPart list show up here? Let's see where it is. Yeah, there we go. This is the list of the RtWebParts. Does that show up properly, indicating that RtWebParts has been installed properly, etc.? Once you install a WebPart like a Gauge WebPart, you need to modify it in order to test whether the tag search, to test the connection to Pi. And the best way to test that connection to Pi is just simply using the tag search. So again, I chose to modify this WebPart. Let me demonstrate that again. Within the WebPart itself, I added a gauge, or you could add a trend or something like that. I chose the option called Modify Shared WebPart. Now this is a good kind of a first step for troubleshooting, because if the tag search works, then you can be pretty sure that most of the other data requirements are going to be met, or all the other data retrievals are going to work. So I'm adding a tag mask of just a couple of characters to search for these tags. I also have made sure that I've chosen a server that's available to me, and I'll go ahead and choose search. Now if you see no server here, I'll show you how to double check that in just a few minutes. And there we go. I do my search, and I don't even need to look at the data to know that this is working so far. I mean, so far the tag search works. So in my experience, that means basically all access to Pi appears to be on target there. Now if for whatever reason that doesn't work, one of the things to do is to check to make sure that you've got a trust properly confined, and I'm doing that in the Pi System Management Tools. So under System Management Tools, I'll go into the Security section and look at trusts, and what I would be looking for is to just double check to see if there are trusts that exist that allow access, using the trust setups that we've described in previous chapters. So just double check that the Pi server has those trusts defined. Again, we'll look at some of those trusts again in an upcoming video on application pools. And then one other thing to do to ensure is within your administration site. Let me open up a new window here. Within the administration site, within RT Baseline Services, just make sure that you've got a data source selected for Pi data. So under Pi data sources, we need to have at least one Pi server listed there. Now if this is not configured properly, the way you would notice that is when you would go in here and try modifying this WebPart page, or this WebPart. Under the tag search, you would not see any Pi server listed. So if I go to tag search here, if you don't see a Pi server listed there, and the drop-down doesn't include any Pi servers, then the culprit there would typically be that somebody has forgotten to configure data sources for you.